This is a video on watercolour part 1 for anyone that wants to delve a little bit deeper into the world of watercolour. This video will have a definition, types of watercolour, types of brushes, types of paper, what does GSM mean, hot and cold press, properties of watercolour, and permanency and lightfastness. So a definition: watercolour, pigment, colour, plus the binder, which is the vehicle medium. Watercolour's vehicle is gum arabic, the pigment that is mixed with water. Watercolours can be paints or water-soluble pencils, sticks, textures, pens, tubes, pans, discs. Watercolour is arguably the most used painting method in the world. Watercolour is a naked paint. It has a truth of colour which no other paint will do. It is all to do with the vehicle. Each colour is a pigment with its own characteristics. According to the Tate, refers to both the medium and works of art made using the medium of watercolour, a water-soluble paint with transparent properties. So types of watercolour. These are some of the types. So we do have some discs, some water-soluble pencils, also called aquarelles. We've got some crowns, textures, tubes, pans. Types of brushes. These aren't the only types of brushes. We have a mop, fan brush, mop brush, some aqua brushes as well. Types of paper. So the type of paper is really important when you are using watercolour. Generally, the higher the GSM, the better. And these are some of the ones that we use at school. We tend to use the Canson paper down here at the bottom quite a lot. It's quite good value for how many pieces of paper that it is. It's around 300 GSM. So what does GSM actually stand for? So it stands for grams per square metre. The higher the GSM number, the heavier the paper. Photocopy paper is around 80 GSM, cartridge paper around 150 GSM, watercolour paper around 300 GSM. It does go higher as well. Hot and cold press. Watercolour papers come in 3 surfaces: rough, smooth, hot press, HP, and medium cold press, CP, or not, as in not hot press. You can see the 3 differences just there. Cold press, medium grain texture, all-rounder, good for beginners, and a popular choice and can be used for a variety of techniques. Hot pressed, smooth with no tooth, fine grain, dries quickly, good for multiple layers, popular with botanic artists, illustrators, can give a flat finish, good for fine detail. Rough, deep ridges, strong textured surface, has tooth, suited for granulating colours and loose brushwork. Also really good for some dry brush techniques too. So, properties of watercolour: granulation, staining, transparency, and opacity. Granulating colours can have dark, grainy, and have an uneven finish. Happens when the water is mixed with the pigment. Traditional pigments granulate, such as the colberts, earth, and ultramarines. These pigments are large, and these particles separate into the fibres of the paper. Once dry, a grainy texture is left. These textures can be really effective. Granulating colour properties are coded or labelled G, and these are some of the granulating colours that are listed below. Non-granulating colours are colours that are smooth and even when mixed with the water. They cover the paper equally with limited to no variation in colour or texture. Modern organic pigments don't granulate. Some non-granulating colours include Fliato blue. Staining pigment means it stains and sinks into the fibres of the paper quickly. These strong pigments can't be lifted from paper using a tissue. Staining pigments are very small and get into the fibres of the paper easily. They can be very vibrant and be good for layering or glazing techniques. Modern pigments stain. Staining code is ST, and some of the staining colours are listed just there. Non-staining pigments sit on top of the paper and can be removed by re-wetting to lift the paint. They can be good for creating highlights by lifting or removing paint in areas and can be used to soften areas with soft edges. Traditional colours lift. These are some of the examples of non-staining colours. Transparency means they sit on top of the paper and allow light to pass through. You can see underneath. Great for layering, glazes. All watercolours are transparent when used with lots of water. Some are naturally more opaque. There are varying degrees of transparent colour depending on the amount of water used. Transparent colour maintains its lumosity and brightness by allowing the white of the paper to show through. Codes used for transparent colours are marked with T and semi-transparent ST. Some transparent colours are below. Opaque colours let little light in. They can be chalky and flat. Good for darker, dramatic looks. They are easy to lift off the paper too. Opaque pigments are heavy in the water and settle into the paint solution quickly. Opaque blocks the light and prevents lumosity by blocking the white of the paper showing through. These colours aren't bright, so they don't mix well with other opaque colours. Opaque can be used to cover up or flatten colour. Opaque colours are marked with O or semi-opaque SO. So you can see some of the opaque colours below, most of the cadmiums, your lamp blacks, your Chinese whites, etc. Permanency and lightfastness. Permanency is the pigment's resist to change when exposed to light in the environment. Lightfastness refers to the ability for the pigment to retain its original colour over time, and these colours won't fade or change.